In this video, I'm going to be talking about how you can take care of your Pakistan or Yoyo Loaches. They're both the same thing, just different names. They're called Yoyo Loach most commonly because they have the word yo-yo written on their side when they're young, and eventually when they get older, it'll sort of just turn into more squiggly lines and they won't really look the same. Now what you want to think about first when buying a Yoyo Loach is the size of their tank. Loaches in general need big tanks. These are one of the small sized loaches, so it won't need as big of a tank as like a clown loach or something, but they still do need a pretty big one. For a little loach, a little baby loach, you only need about 80 litres, or for a group of them you only need about 80 litres, and when they get older you'll need about 250 to 300 litres. I see websites saying that 150 litres is good for an adult loach. They get about 15 centimetres, which is about that big. Imagine this in there. That loach is probably going to destroy things, and they're not going to have much space to swim around in either. Now the group size is going to need to be around 3 is probably the lowest. You can keep them in pairs, but they definitely prefer a bigger group. And probably the best size would be 5 loaches. You can get more, but 5 is probably easier to look after. I've heard that they have no scales, but I've also heard that they have very, very tiny scales. But either way, they're going to have very, very sensitive skin. Without having big scales like big cichlids and tetras and stuff, it's going to be a lot easier for them to get cut. They also like sand or very fine gravel. You can keep them with pebbles if you want, but I've just found that they prefer sand because they can sift around in it, look for food in it. The temperature of the tank should be around 25 to 27 degrees Celsius, and the pH should be around 6 to 7.5. Once you've got the water conditions right, you've got lots of plants in there, they can go well with basically any plant. Plants are very good for their tank. You can buy them. So make sure there are no dying fish in that tank, dead fish in that tank. Get a little group of them, take them home, acclimate them for around 20 to 30 minutes. It's more important that if the bag is warmer than the water, then they will be more likely to get shocked. And if the water in the bag is colder than the water in the tank, usually you can get away with putting them in where the tank water is warmer, but it's best safe just to put them in when they're the same temperature. If they've been in the tank for a long time at the store and they've been around a lot of people, they'll be more tamed and they won't swim away. Well, they might swim away, but I found with my new loaches, they don't swim away when you come to the tank, whilst with my older ones, you look at the tank, you go, they run away. You'll probably see that too in here. You can, it's a little, no, look. Not getting scared at all, doesn't care. Whilst if this little guy, yeah, see, he moves as soon as I touch him. The loaches are going to have fun together, they're going to swim around together. They don't really school like a tetra, they sometimes swim around in groups, but most of the time they're just swimming around the tank, having fun climbing up the big stem plants. They love stem plants. I like to picture them as like they're trees, because they just swim up them, they swim up the wood, they like climbing. They also, I used to get scared of this, but you'll get used to it eventually. They sleep like a person does. They sleep on their side. They sleep upside down. My loach, Iwi, is the biggest one. He likes to sleep upside down in a wood crevice and it looks like he is dead. It scared me a few times at the start. And also when they're eating, they'll click at the top of the water. I don't know if that's communicating or if that's just the noise they make when they're eating. We should probably move on to tank mates now. I would not recommend any big cichlids like Jack Dempsey's, Oscars. I kept my convict cichlid with them when he was a baby, and when the tank leaked and everything, they was separated from them a long time, and he was never the same. He attacks anything that he's in a tank with now. You could possibly grow something like a convict or a firemouth up with them from babies, and they might be good with them, but I don't know if you should risk it. It might work, but I found that if you say like, oh, I'll just sell him if he gets too aggressive, you'll probably get attached to him. Now some of the good ones you can keep them with are things like live bearers, like guppies, mollies, barbs. All those live bearers are usually good fish to keep with loaches, as well as tetras. Most tetras will be fine with them. You can have rummy nose, neons, cardinals, black skirts. Most of them will go fine with Yoyo Loaches. As long as they're not really a super aggressive fish, they'll usually be fine with loaches. And once they've settled down in their new tank, maybe a day or two after you've put them in there, you can start feeding them. Now, my loaches are very fussy with what they like to eat. They do eat tropical flakes when they're really hungry, but they'll usually go for something else. So they'll usually eat like algae wafers, cichlid pellets. You feed them bloodworms, black worms, earthworms if they're small enough. Don't feed them big ones because they won't be able to eat them. They eat a lot of crustaceans. They'll eat shrimp if your shrimp are like overbreeding or something. They love eating snails. Yoyo loaches are very good for eating snails. If you have an infestation in one tank, grab out a bunch and feed it to the snails. If you have an infestation in one tank that you want to put loaches in, put loaches in. Most loaches will eat snails. They'll like flip them over and suck the snail out of their shell, and you'll just be finding empty snail shells everywhere you look. So that was basically all. If you follow this guide, you can get your loaches to live a good 10 to even 20 years. But obviously you can go much deeper into what I've spoken about, different things. So if you enjoyed this video or got something out of it, please consider liking the video, and if you really want to, consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys in the next video.